I went out to see The Nice Guys, and it was bloody hilarious. I don't think I've seen a film more fun than this one this year, not to mention an original written film. It's really hard to come across a film that isn't based off another source material these days. In fact, I was questioned once by somebody at my track and field team about how original can a film be if it's a buddy cop film. Wouldn't that just mean that it is basically a rip-off of Ride Along? Well, it's not a reboot, it's not a remake, it's not based off of another source material, and best of all, it's not crap, and it actually does something different that sets it apart from the rest of the buddy cop movies. This is a completely original story that doesn't use cliches or bail out on its creativity. It's clever, charming, and actually writes jokes and humor that are funny. Well, it's about bloody time. Russell Crowe plays Jackson Healy, an enforcer who is really good at detective work, but is not a PI, though sometimes he wishes he was. Ryan Gosling plays an actual PI named Holland March, but is more of a swindler than he is a detective, who is eventually given the case to find a girl named Amelia, played by Margaret Qualley. Healy encounters March to beat him up and give him the message to stop looking for her, but then some thugs try to beat some information out of him to find out where she is. After he rids of them, he goes to March to convince him to team up with him to find out where she is and return her to safely. But as they keep getting closer and closer, they soon discover that there is an entire murder mystery conspiracy that is behind this investigation. The premise is already fantastic, as the writer of this movie is most notable for his writing in sidekick movies, from Lethal Weapon to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Although I haven't seen these movies, Shane Black definitely has an understanding in this field of writing, since these movies are critically acclaimed, and if he ever is writing another buddy cop movie again, I will definitely be in that seat again. However, because he is perfect in this role of writing doesn't make him completely perfect. After all, he wrote for Iron Man 3, but I'm gonna assume that he just wrote the good parts of this. Wait, he was a director? Shit. The performances from all the actors, especially the actors portraying our main characters, was amazingly good. When I was watching this movie, I didn't feel like I was watching Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling acting the part. I saw the characters that they were portraying. It's also amazing that I get to see the physical acting of Russell Crowe, because ever since Gladiator, everyone wanted this strong, able-bodied man to be the tough warrior and even bloody god. But this is a film. I was surprised that Russell Crowe is a lot larger in this film. Seeing the man that is usually buff is now in major weight gain really adds to the realism of the character in seeing him instead of Russell Crowe. I'm not much of a buff on Ryan Gosling, but he's pathetically funny in this movie, and that just may be why the movie is so funny to me. He has starred in some pretty acclaimed movies that I should definitely check out. The film gives off the serious mood mixed with comedy, which is my favorite kind of humor, and it really made me burst out laughing in the theater, and that is really hard to do. It was an amazing comedic experience for me. The seriousness of this film also allows the audience to feel for these characters while still being able to laugh at their painful moments, and I don't think I've seen a film like this for a very long time. The best parts about the writing in this movie was that it wasn't cliched, didn't feel like anything I've experienced in this film. There isn't any characters huffing and puffing and saying that they have to work together, or no, there aren't any "you're not so bad" lines or "you're so terrible" lines or anything like that, and there's no long breaks of pissing around until they finally get the last clue that they need for something. Clues are spread out in the film from the start, and they figured them out as the film goes along. It actually feels like a mystery that even the audience is solving themselves, making the film a load of fun to watch. The movie even becomes downright suspenseful and worrying for our main characters. The comedy is worked into the movie so cleverly to work with the suspense instead of stopping the film to tell a joke, because the jokes are mostly their reactions to the things that are happening around them. This movie is funny while still being serious and suspenseful at the same time. The setting is perfect for this kind of movie, and it could only really work with this kind of setting. It is the late 1970s in Los Angeles, and most of the film has been filmed in this location, with the only other exception being Atlanta. It really does set the feeling that this film is from the 1970s, with a much better film stock. And speaking of film stock, there is a porno in this film. It doesn't exactly take up a large chunk of time in the movie, but I didn't see anything like it in the trailers, so I ended up bringing my mother along. I was oblivious to the fact that there was nudity in this film until we started watching it, so it came up as a surprise to both of us. I only wish I had a warning about it because the trailers never mentioned it. But it really didn't need to because it probably would have spoiled some things. This isn't exactly a film I recommend taking any of your family members to, and probably not a date unless you know your date is into this kind of stuff. But me and my mother really enjoyed this film and we were glad we watched it anyway. The problems in this movie are very nitpicky, and I honestly don't have a big problem with them. There are some logical things in this movie that don't really take away from the film, but it made me question it. There was a cut in this movie that seemed to show Ryan lighting a smoke, but then suddenly there was smoke surrounding his face before he could even blow out some smoke. I did ask myself if the water could really deflect a blow from a building that high. And there's even a moment my mother pointed out with a machine gun. How can somebody really avoid a machine gun that powerful? Believe it or not, I even had problems with March's daughter, Holly, played by Agatharine Rice. She was kind of annoying at times. She did do a marvelous performance, but sometimes I felt her naive acting was way too naive to the point where it came across as stupid. Children can be naive, but when this little girl can drive a car, I don't think she would threaten somebody with, "I'll never speak to you again." Wow, that was an eye roller. But overall, there were some very funny jokes that she said, and there were some very funny moments that she had. Overall, the film really didn't have anything that bothered me. This film is really worth a watch, and it only disappoints me that at the box office, this movie is really doing pretty poorly right now. The budget for this film was $50 million. However, the box office for it right now is $16.2 million. I really hope that this is more like the Back to the Future movie where it had a bad start but incredibly increased over the span of the following weeks. More people really need to see this film, and I highly encourage everyone to watch it. I'm gonna give this film an A. Thank you for listening. If you wanted to check out more reviews, you can check them out on my Divine Art page. And if you wanted to like and subscribe, the button's at the bottom.